It is a beautiful day, whether you're listening to this in the morning or you're live with us now. It is a beautiful day. I am excited when I get to wear like fall things and I get to put a coat on and I get to be covered. Hint for later in this lesson. When there's a covering, I get to add coverings. I have I got a new blankets. Actually, I was Crystal, you'll be happy to know I did finally get 3 matching blankets for my couch. They're the soft, like from Sam's Club that have like the fur on them and the covering when you can just sit on the couch and you can just put the covering. You know the feeling? Can you all just take a minute and like feel it? You put that covering. Now these are like soft, fuzzy, like I mean, I'm very tactile, so it's all the things, and you just put it's life, the life. I love it. Oh, life of a mama Jen guy. Sorry. You pull this cover over on top of you. You're covered and you're cozy. And it's that feeling in that time of year when you get to do that because all summer long you've just been trying to rip the covers off, right? For those of you who are in menopause, you get what I'm saying. But you're covering yourself up. It feels good. Putting on this, like the shackets now that are in style, for those of you who maybe listening to this later, that's maybe not in style anymore. But right now, these shackets, it's the shirt jacket. And so it goes down a little longer. It's cozy, has a little bigger button on it. You're covered. Oh, yes. Jen says the best Shabbat blankets. Yes. When you're just Shabbating, or you're just in a Shabbat mode. Let's say I just need to rest. Some people will say to me about, oh my gosh, you're so busy. You have so much going on. Can I just say to you, I'm a good rester. When we have been down now for in our home for 3 days, we had Saturday, we had Shabbat for Saturday, and then we had Sunday, we ran around and got a few little things done. And then we had Monday and Tuesday in our family. We were in Yom Teruah. So we took both full days of a Shabbat. We chose to do that in our home. I'm a good rester. Don't have to tell me twice. It's such relaxing to give myself that covering of a Shabbat. You may notice this might be a word for the day. There's a covering that's going to happen as you Shabbat yourself. Miriam says, she brings the Shabbat wherever she goes. She brings it with her. So there's that, right? There's this sense of covering as we're sitting in that. And going into this class, we're going into, I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're already in this letter. How many letters are we in? You guys tell me, someone write it in. Do we count them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we're 12, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, we're in 11. We're on the 11th letter. So 11, 12 weeks into this because we had an intro class. And maybe you're at this point now where at the 12th week, the 11th letter, we're halfway through the alphabet. I want you to say this. You can give as much or as little to this as you want. If you wanted to go back and do it differently, you can do it in homeschooling time with your children. But let me just give you an example. This is full blown. I'm doing this course with all my heart, soul, mind, strength. This is what it's going to happen. And in doing that, I'm going to read these 8 verses every day at some point in the day. Maybe even you wake up and you read them to yourself, or you read them over yourself as you go to bed, or you listen to them. You have a Bible app that you listen to the verses being said over you. You have the songs that I've showed you that you're playing those songs in your home and they're going throughout your home and you're listening, your kids or yourself, you're teaching yourself as you're memorizing it. That's another level of this, is that you're actually memorizing these 8 verses, or at least the generality. Not that a lot of people will ask me, well, what version should I memorize in? Well, a lot of us grew up in traditional Christianity where we had to memorize in King James Version. Well, I'm going to share with you that's not necessary. That you just memorize the word, knowing that as you read over it, if you can paraphrase it, that you're knowing what he's saying in your heart. You're not adding to or taking away. You're just saying, this is what's coming out of my heart for these 8 verses. Pick a version that you love and memorize that one. Okay. You can get really crazy and memorize the Hebrew of it. Listen to it over and over. Now that would be like next level deep, but you could do that. You can listen to the Hebrew of this. There are apps and places where you can hear the Hebrew playing over and over to yourself. So you can actually do that as well. So there's that section of just hearing it. Then you could write it. You're writing it out. You could write it out in Hebrew. You could get really crazy, right? Another next level. You could write it all out. Then you could take the word studies that we have. If you go into your library, there's word studies for each 8 verses. And I've put in 2 verses at a time. I've put the words in there, and all you have to do then is look it up in Blue Letter Bible. You're going to write, it'll tell you to write, your Strong's number, and then go in and say, what was the root of it? And what does this say? And then underneath that, it says to rewrite it in your own words. Now that you have different understanding from a Hebraic perspective, not an English perspective, you're going to rewrite this. So you rewrite the section. And then as you rewrite each section, then you can sit in and say, does this look different to me now? Now that I've done this, does this look different? And I would love that if you would share that. If those of you who are going to that level and you are doing this as a full, like a class for yourself, a full study, would you go in and go ahead and write those things, right? So write it out, leave a comment saying this was my understanding, or rewrite it to us and show us what you got from your studies. That would be amazing. Share that with us, or ask questions in there. We do see them. We do answer them. They come in. When you ask questions to any of our instructors, they go to the instructor so that they can personally answer those for you. So that's next level on that, going through and listening to that. And then, of course, there's the PowerPoints if you want to redo those. Then going in on your own studies, I do put in some extra resources. You can go in. Today, I have some things already added in there. I will continue to add some things. I will go back in and add some things. But right now, I have a couple resources that I personally used, and then I will be sharing with you a resource before I get started. So, Father, I thank you for this time. I thank you, Father, that you've given us this tool of your word. I remember being a child in class like 7th grade or 6th grade or 5th grade and passing notes and remembering cherishing those notes that were passed to me, especially those that might be from a very special friend or boy. And I remember reading those over and over and putting them in a special place, guarding them, not letting anyone else see them, guarding them close to my heart, bringing them out and reading them. Father, your word is like that to me. And I pray that the ladies would, and children or anyone who's listening to this, they would feel a spark of that. How valuable your word is. Father, I thank you that today I know you're giving a special message in this lesson about this letter Kaf, about these 8 verses in Psalms, about the way that you want to cover us and the way that you want us to be vulnerable and trust you, that you are faithful to cover us. So we enter in this time right now together, Father, and we did give it all to you. I ask that you put a watch on my tongue, that you guard my lips, that only your ways, your words would come from me. Thank you, Father. Amen. Well, I want to open it up before I go to my PowerPoint and start teaching. Does anyone have anything? I'll give you a quick opportunity. Anything that you'd like to share from the previous letter, going back to Yod? Remember, Yod was the closed hand. It was the mine. Well, God saying it's mine. It's Him claiming what belongs to Him. I love this letter. We're going to go into a different form of the hand today in Kaf. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share that they want to before we get going on last week? Maybe they did their word studies. Give you just a second here.
I would
Get
love
ready.
to, except I
Yes.
didn't get it
Yeah.
because I didn't get that. I didn't get the word study. So I was like, okay, I'll just have to put this off. So I got a couple weeks coming up. So I'll have something next week for 2 letters.
Fantastic. Yeah, you'll have a lot of things to do. Yeah, please thank you all for your grace as that did not get posted. And I, again, appreciate you, Amanda, for bringing that to my attention. That was awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll have time then during, at the end of this, and we will can go over it again. So let's see. Let's see today if, all right. Yeah, you get to see all the secret things. All right. So we're in Psalms 119. And does anyone want to open up their mic? Rebecca, are you available? Can you read that? Or do you have, is it quiet or do you have but can you read that for us? She might not be able to. Jen, can you read it? I usually pick everyone who has, like, of course, all the kids in the background, right?
I can read for you, Charlie.
Thanks, Erica. Appreciate you. Go ahead.
My soul faints for your salvation. I hope in your word. My eyes fail for your word. I say, when will you comfort me? For I have become like a wineskin in the smoke. I don't forget your statutes. How many are the days of your servant? When will you execute judgment on those who persecute me? The proud have dug pits for me, contrary to your law. All of your commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongly. Help me. They had almost wiped me from the earth, but I didn't forsake your precepts. Preserve my life according to your loving kindness, so I will obey the statutes of your mouth.
Amen. Amen. And then again, if you're just joining us, you see at the beginning of each one of these is the letter Kaf. Each of these start out with that. And I'm reminded as we begin this, I'm reminding of last week when we talked about when David was talking about his afflictions. We talked about that word affliction, the affliction when we're saying that it is the cultivation. That word means to cultivate the soil, though it means the work it takes to cultivate the soil to bring a crop, right? So we think of that word affliction when he's talking about that word affliction. As we bring it into this section, we're seeing that there's a trust. We're going to call it bitikon, right? We're going to see this trust that has to happen because in this section, there's a little bit of a different tone when there's some persecution, there's some people after him. There's an opportunity to trust in a way that might be challenging. And going back to his last sayings about this affliction, this time that it's going to require work for me to cultivate the soil for there to be a crop. And can I just say that I have been stewing in this all week since last week, our last lesson together, because I've been seeing everything that if it comes across that I can define it as an affliction, as something coming against me, as something that I'm going through that's not quite as easy, I have a different perspective now because now I'm seeing this from a whole new different perspective. I'm seeing it from the perspective of the labor that it's going to take for me to cultivate this soil so that there will be not only a crop that will feed me and bless me, but my family and generations to come and all those in my sphere of influence, the way that I can bless others. So even though no matter what I'm going through, what you're going through, he's telling us from last week, remember that he's already told us that we are his. He looks at you and says, she's mine. So that if he's holding on to you, then okay, then he has allowed this affliction. He's allowed this to happen. So it's much like when you get ready to do your garden, it's not that time of year, well, unless you're tilling up the old garden, you're cultivating the soil. Because like for me right now, I have stuff that in my garden that I have to now get rid of, and maybe I'm going to put a winter garden out, right? So the soil has to be not quite as cultivated because I did that earlier. So the cultivation is going to be just getting rid of the old vines, getting rid of we've got, we pulled off the last couple watermelons. We've got the last couple cantaloupes that came off. We're pulling all those vines out of the way. There's a cultivation. Is it work? It's work. Is it going to require labor? Yes. Will we sweat? Probably. Will we be tired? Is it something we get super excited about doing? Absolutely not. But what we do know is that there will be fruit. There will be a beautiful thing that happens from that. Another way to look at it as women, I mean, and this does apply to this because I want to carry that into this week. I've told this to a couple people this week when they've talked to me about some things they're going through or the things they're having to go through, is that you guys know when you go by your closet, you have or drawer, we'll say a closet because that's a big project, and you go, this closet is a hot mess. This closet needs to be cleaned. So when you finally make the decision to cultivate your closet, to get into the closet is an affliction. You can't find anything. It's a mess. So you go in there and what do? You pull everything out. You pull it all out and you bring it into your room and you're looking at it. And now, if you're like me, you stand there and you start probably wanting to cry because now it looks way worse than it did in your closet. Now it's even more of a mess. Now things are all over the place and you're overwhelmed. Like, where do I even start? I remember my daughter, that would happen because she would cram things and we would clean her room. I would pull everything out under the beds, all the things, and put it in the middle. And then I'd be like, okay, so now start. And the first thing is to go through things and get rid of everything that needs to be thrown away. And then, of course, everything we're going to donate. And then we're going to organize the things that are left. That process is cultivating, right? That you cultivate. You know that there's going to be a reward. The reward is going to be you're going to open your closet and you're going to be like, oh, because it's going to look so beautiful. But you're also going to be able to find things. There's going to be organization and there will be a reward for that work. But sometimes when you're standing in the middle of it, it is overwhelming and there has to be trust. Because if you've never done it before, maybe you've never cleaned your closet before, maybe you've never had a garden before, and you're working in this yard and there's like rocks and tree stumps and roots and all, it is a cultivating process. The first time you do it is going to require a level of trust you've never had. Trust that when you're done, when you start planting, those seeds will grow. Trust that when those seeds grow, they will bring fruit. Trust that there'll be water to be able to put on it, right? Trust that it'll even taste good. There's a level of trust through every single part of the process. So we're in Psalms 119, 81 through 88. Again, this is going to be the letter Kaf. And we'll see. Do you guys think it'll work? Let's see. Oh, I don't think you guys can hear that. So just a second. Can you guys hear it? Someone unmute. Could you hear that?
No.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to share my screen. I forgot to share the video. Now you should be able to hear it. You too could teach a class.
My soul faints for your salvation, but I hope in your word. My eyes fell from searching your word, saying, when will you comfort me? For I have become wineskin in smoke, yet I do not forget your statutes. How many are the days of your servants? When will you execute judgment on those who persecute me? The proud have dug pits for me, which is not according to your law. All your commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongfully. Help me. They almost made an end of me on earth, but I did not forsake your precepts. Revive me according to your loving kindness, so that I may keep the testimony of your mouth.
Okay. I'm going to escape. There we go. So I'm curious. Anyone ever had someone literally after you to kill you? Most of us, the answer to that is probably no. I would say the large majority of us could not relate to the intensity that David is talking about in this verse. That someone is literally coming after to kill you. My husband lived in a very traumatic home as a child, and his father, more times probably 2 or 3 times, came after his family to kill them. Literally came after them to kill them. If you've been in the military and you've actually served in a conflict area where people were actually trying to kill you, most of us, that's not the case. We have not lived in a situation where people are actually trying to kill us. Now, but however, that's not to minimize the fact that many of you are living in a situation where you feel like everything's coming against you. You're like, really? This feels like it's trying to kill me. And you'll hear me joke around and I'll say, well, but did you die? How bad was it? Did you die? But sometimes you could pray to die because it's so bad that I can't bear one more thing. And I love that David says in this, they're coming after you. They've dug pits against me. That's not according to your Torah. The things that they're doing is not according to your Torah. They're not in alignment with this, and it's coming against me. So I'm going to stand behind your Torah, but what they're doing, not in alignment. So I'm going to bring that to your attention. Hey, these people not doing so great. Okay. But I thought it was interesting as I was going through this, just the fact that how many of us have really lived in the intensity of having someone come after trying to kill us. Not very many of us. All right. Let's hop back in. All right, let's see if it'll let me go forward. There we go. So can this whole section really be about trust? If you're going through and you're reading this, I'm not sure if you see it, but we see this section saying that my soul faints with longing for your salvation, but I still hope in your word. No matter what's happening to me, I still hope in your word. My eyes are worn out with longing for your promise, saying, when will you comfort me? Knowing that if you're crying to someone to comfort you, you're knowing that he is the one that can bring the comfort. So the word for trust, this is about, I'm trusting that you're the one who's going to fix all this. So that's the reason why I can cry out to you in the first place, because he wouldn't cry out to someone who he didn't feel would be able to help him, right? That wouldn't be the case. So what does this word mean? Some of you have heard bitachon, trust. It's the peace of mind that the person that you're trusting in will do the good and the correct thing for you. And they'll do it in kindness. And in kindness, what does that mean? They're going to do it in a way that you know it's in your best interest. And when you can wrap yourself around it the way that David wraps himself, and that's why I believe one of the reasons he says he was after his own heart, literally either meaning he was after the heart of God, like I want to be like you, I want your heart, I want to do things the way you do, but he was literally trying to be like him, the way Yeshua says, I do what you do, I hear what I say what you say, I do what you do. I feel like David's heart was that. So if our heart then is to be the most like him, and we're trusting this bitachon, if we're trusting him, we know that he's a good God. We know that he's doing this in kindness. We know all those things. You're going to hear a word, a lot of us have used the word emunah, however you want to say it. The Garden of Gratitude will change your life if you read that book by Shlomo Arus. Shlomo Arus, rabbi. Oh, it will change your life, because what it's going to require you to do is be grateful in all things. And how are these two things really do line up? But first of all, how do you trust someone? You trust someone because you know that that person has compassion for you. And you know that as you go through this and you're seeing it, he's crying out to him. He's crying out because he's appealing to the compassion of his creator. You also know that that person, if you trust them and you have trust, you have bitachon in that person, you know that they have empathy. You know that they feel what you feel, that they're trying to empathize with you. They're not just minimizing your existence or minimize what you're feeling. How do we know that David feels that way? Because of the way he's crying out. He's crying out and he knows that he's saying, I want you to empathize with me because I know that you're the God who empathizes. He knows when someone you trust, you know they love you. Truly, truly love you. Unto death love you. Like they would do anything for you. So you trust. That's where that trust, that bitachon comes from. It's all of these combined actually fulfill, or they're making they put all these things together, and you know that that person is fulfilling compassion, empathy, love, and they're also making, if it's a man, they're making every effort that they can to fulfill the promises that they've made to you. You also know that that person is strong, and it's that person's not won over by other influences to fulfill the promise. When you have bitakon, when you have trust in someone, you know that that person is not going to be won over by, I trust my husband, and I know he's not going to be won over by what other people say. I know he's not going to be won over by influences and other things because I trust him. I know because there has been a history of him that happening and him making the right choice and him covering me. You know that if you trust someone, they're covering you in love, compassion, empathy, right? They're covering you in all these things. And you know that nothing is going to stop that person. Maybe you have a friend, we'll say there are ride or die girlfriends, right? Some of you have a few of those. The ride or die, like we're going to do it. The girl who says, I accidentally killed someone or on purpose, and they'll say, I'll be right over. I have the shovels in the trunk. None of this is Torah appropriate. This is the disclaimer. Okay. So we have those people, but what about our God? Do you truly know the way that David talks about right here? That this is the person that is so strong, it's not going to be won over by the influence of evil, by other things coming against them, not going to be one, and nothing is going to stop them. I think that we forget that unto death, which we know he did for us. All of these added together equals trust in that person. And then there's another factor, a fourth factor in this. Can I just, and I'll share with you guys when we're done, one of my resources in this is the person who you're putting your trust in. They know the things that will actually benefit you. They are not going to hide them from you. They're not going to have all these secret agendas. A person that you have trust in, you know this, you know that it's for your good. And do you hear, this is the emunah where it comes in. It's for my good. Even when it's bad, it's for my good. And you're not going to hide things from me because you've told me it's for my good. All of this together equals peace of mind. And that's when we can go back to the scripture verse that says that we are to present our requests with prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, present our request to God. And then the peace of God that transcends all understanding guards our heart and our mind. That's peace. That's having full bitakon and emunah in a God, knowing that I'm going to present what I need, and then I'm going to thank you because I know you heard me and you're going to answer me. You have your perfect will. You're not hiding things from me. You're empathetic to me. I can trust you. And that, if I fully know it, is going to give me peace of mind. And that's where we're hearing David as he goes through this fifth. You are to understand that that person's you're under their exclusive care. This is next level. This is God level right here. You are under someone's exclusive care. Can I tell you that you are under the Father's exclusive care? We know that he created you. He knew you before you even were woven together in your mother's womb. You are exclusively under his care, which is next level bitakon, right? And we're told in Proverbs 3:5-6 that we trust in the Lord with all our hearts, to lean not on our own understandings, and in all our ways we acknowledge him, and he will direct our paths. This is in such alignment with Psalms 119:81-88. He's crying out and says, this is how I feel, but I'm not going to trust in my own understanding. But I'm going to acknowledge you in all my ways. Even the other people are digging pits for me, which were against Torah. Even all these other things are happening, even though it might even be just in my own mind. I might be digging some things against myself. I'm struggling with the enemies of my mind, voices that are trying to tell me that of the past, that are telling me I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I can't do this. I'm trusting with all my heart, and I'm not going to lean on what I'm hearing. That's this bitakon. This is what he's talking about. The person that you're trusting in is also known for their kindness, They're known for being a person of their word. They're generous, those deserving and not deserving. That's next level bitachon. That's next level trust. Someone that you trust in, you know you trust in them because they do the right thing when no one's looking. They are generous to those that deserve it and those that don't deserve it because that's who they are. That's next level. There's very few humans, right, that you could actually say, wow, I have full bitachon, full trust in you. Unlike David is saying this to God, because here's a God who's generous. Knowing he's generous, he brings rain to the deserving and the undeserving, right? He is that God. The generosity is constant and the kindness then is never ending. This may seem like so simple, but I really feel like most of us don't sit in this. Because if we did, our stories would be different. Our testimonies would be different. Our countenance would be different. The way we walk in our lives would be different because we would be, even though things are bad, we could be, but God is in this. We would have a testimony like David does here. Only God has all these qualities, right? We see in Psalms 103:8, he tells us that he is merciful and he is gracious. In Jonah 4:11, he even took pity even upon Nineveh, meaning he's gracious even to those who don't deserve it. He was even, we remember way back with Abraham when he is bartering with him because he still is merciful and gracious. Psalms 121:4, he doesn't ignore those that he cares for. He can be trusted in. He's proven it. He's proven he's trustworthy. In 1 Chronicles 29:11, he says that even though the people that are wise in the heart and mighty in strength, he still brings strength to them. He brings strength and might to them. In Zephaniah 3:17, he is mighty to save. He's strong enough. If I'm looking for who's someone I can trust in, where can I put my full bitachon? Like this is next level trust, right? Where can I put that full level in there? He's got you. He's got you. One of the examples I read, and I put the whole article in the little section inside your library that you can click on it and go read it. She gives a story about learning to eat with a spoon. And I wanted to talk about that just briefly is when you learn to eat with a spoon, when you're a child, you remember when you first do it, they're kind of all over the place trying to get it in the mouth. And then they want to take it on their own and they want to grab the spoon away from you and they want to feed themselves and they're getting it all over the place. Uh, because they decide I'm going to do it myself. Don't we do that sometimes in our life? We don't have the bitachon. We don't have that trust. And so we say, Father, just give me the spoon. Let me just do it myself. When I was in nursing school, one of the first things that we learned in nursing school, the first few weeks you learn medical assistant things, not medical assistant, but CNA work. So you want to know what the people that you're going to be overseeing, what they're doing. So you actually have to do that work for like 6 months. So one of the things they teach you is how to feed people. And the way that you feed people is you have to touch the tip of their, let me stop so I can share this, not sharing anymore. You touch the tip. So let me pretend like this is a spoon. When you're feeding someone who is, you're coming at them with a spoon, and what you'll notice is a lot of people will feed those who are adults. They just shove the food in their mouth. They'll like bring it to them and just put, but we were taught that when you bring it to them, especially someone who can't see the food coming, you either tell them, okay, here comes another bite. And it sounds silly and you're not being demeaning, but another way to do it is you touch their lip. And then they know, oh, open my mouth and it's coming in. Because I don't know if you've ever been fed by someone, but I recommend this is a great thing to do with your children, to talk to them about trust. Closing your eyes and having someone feed you. And you have different people, the way they can feed you is they can shove it in your mouth and get it all over the place. And then you end up just grabbing the spoon away and doing it. Or it's the person who you can trust that you close your eyes. They're going to touch your lip. Okay, ready for a bite. And then it's time to bite. Do you see the difference? When someone is bringing things to you and you have to trust that what you're going to eat is good for you. You're going to have to trust that what you're going to eat is something that you may not like it, but you're not going to hate it because you trust them because they know you. Especially as an adult, you know, they know you. They know if you know me, you're not going to give me fried okra. or I can never trust you again. I will then never trust what you're going to put in my mouth with my eyes closed, because I'm going to remember that you could give me fried okra. So I need to make sure I'd open my eyes and make sure that, no, I'll just feed myself. But you are going to trust that person, that every time you go, oh, this is one of my favorites. Oh, this is good. Not one of my favorites, but it's good. And I know this is good for me. And that's that level of bitachon that we're hearing here in Psalms 119, 81 through 88. He says, my soul faints with longing for your salvation, but I still hope in your word. I'm waiting on you, but I'm hoping, right? And then he says, my eyes are worn out longing for your promises. And I'm saying, when will you come and comfort me? But I trust you're still there. I know this is for my good. You're working out some kind of a muscle. Though I become like a wineskin dried in smoke. Have any of you guys done tanning leather? Do you know what that's like? Has anyone tanned leather with smoke before? I'd love to hear it if you guys if someone on here has that experience. Anyone? Okay. So I have this is not something I can speak to as a professional by no means. And don't even play a professional on TV on this, but I have watched some of the survival shows. I've watched them tanning leather, and I've watched one of the ways, I think it's like The Last Alaskans or something. And the older gentleman there, he will take the hides that he has to tan the leather. And one of the way he does it is he stretches it all out, right? And then he puts it into the smokehouse, and then there's smoke. So what's happening is, in that smokehouse, and again, I'm not a professional at this, I'm sure this whole thing can preach all by itself, is that process of that wineskin. And a lot of us feel like that. First of all, you're going in, you're like, like it's coughing, you got smoke everywhere. But what that happens in this wineskin, when those skins would go in, when skins go in there, is, if you kind of know, it's going to shrink things together. So even though you're thinking, oh, I'm shrinking in, it feels like things are pulling in together. What happens is it's causing a binding so that can be waterproof. The point of the smoking is so that it can operate in its function. Because right now you might be operating low tove. So what he might do is put you in a smokehouse like a wineskin, so that you can now operate in the function that you were intended to operate in. Put you in there and put you through a process. I don't know what the process is, what the cultivating is, what's the affliction that's going to cause some labor, that's going to cause the cells to come together, that's going to cause things to actually come together so that you can operate in your function and you can hold water. Because even though you thought you looked so beautiful like this one way, the skin looks so pretty with all the fur on it, now it needs to come in to be functional. Even if you want a coat out of it, for it to be functional and waterproof, it has to go through that tanning process. It has to go through the process of smoking so that the fibers can become waterproof. Can you think of moments right now, maybe in your life or even in the past, when you have felt like a wineskin, when you realize that you weren't operating in your function and things were happening to you, that now all of a sudden it's causing you to now be waterproof? It's causing you now to be able to go get through things. It's the pitch, which is the covering, the atonement. It's the things that happen to you so that you can actually now do what you're called to do and created to do. Can you see that? Maybe like David, as he's going through this, he says, but I do not forget your decrees. And he starts going through counting. We talked about how he's digging pits for me. They're coming all against me. But he goes back, your mitzvah are faithful. You are faithful. He refreshes and revives himself. So I'm going to keep on going here. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. The last two verses, he starts really turning and saying, but I'm not going to forsake your precepts. Revive me with your loving kindness so that I may keep your mouth's testimony. I want my testimony. Some of you, including myself, you go through seasons, or maybe you're in this season where your testimony is constantly about all the bad things that are happening, all the things coming against you, as opposed to the testimony of the goodness of God, the goodness of what he's doing. And the reason David can do this, he can take for a minute and go, but God is good. I trust in you. I trust you're going to do these things because I want my testimony. because that's how people come to him. Remember, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. These last two verses were reminded of that because he says, I have prefixed myself. He set his mind on his ways and his truth. I often say this, but we will run to the phone and not the throne. We prefix ourselves on what our friends are going to tell us. We prefix ourselves on someone else's thoughts and ideas, as opposed to what is the word telling me who I am? When I'm faltering and I'm feeling low and when things are coming against me, am I affirming myself in his word? Am I saying, I am created to be amazing? I am the child of the Most High King. And the more that you speak that word over yourself out loud, and you feel like an idiot sometimes because you don't feel it, but you're speaking life to your dry bones. You're calling those things that are not as though they were so that you can prefix yourself on him. All right. So what does that look like? It's that thought letter, the facts. What do I feel? And what are the actions? Let's go back to this when we'll go through an exercise together after we stop the recording. But we say, the thought ladder, and I've taught you guys this before. What's the fact? The fact is I don't have enough money to pay my bills. How does that make me feel? It makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel stressed out. It makes me feel like I haven't done a good job in taking care of things. And what is the action? For me, usually it's to shut down. I shut down and I don't do anything. It causes me to shut down. Okay. Now, if I go back, the fact is always the fact. The fact is I don't have enough money. There's more month than money. How do I feel about that? I feel I'm going to change it's thoughts. Forgot the thought in there. Go back. What are my thoughts about that? My thoughts are that, and I went through it. Now my thoughts are, if I change my thoughts, so what is my thoughts, God? My thoughts are that you're my provider. My thoughts are that you give me a way when there is no way. So what'll happen is it'll change how you feel. You'll feel differently. So my feelings now are hopeful. I have bitachon. I have trust. And then my action then is I will actually start moving. I'm not paralyzed anymore. And I actually take action. You can do a thought ladder with every single situation that you're going through. And that's what David's going through in this. He's going through the process. I'll tease and say he's bipolar, but he's really going through a thought ladder. Here's what's going on. Here's the facts. These are my thoughts about it. This is how I feel about it. And these are my actions. But God, so now this is going to how I'm going to change my thoughts, which will change how I feel, which will change how I act. There's a varying degrees of bitachon according to a person's degree of emunah. One person may have emunah that although things right now are not good, they are all for the good eventually. A higher, yet more enlightened emunah is that everything right now is good, even when it superficially looks terrible. And that is actually from Chabad.org, and I will add that source on there. It's also in your library. Quick about the Kaf, it's the value 20. I would encourage you to go in again, taking this course to the next level would be taking and going through each of the letters in our course, discovering the energy of the letters. It is not some woo-woo course. The energy of the letters is just talking the energy God has put into them to bring energy to your life. So yes, we've had people say that. So we're watching on Kaf. I encourage you to go back and watch Brenda teach you what is Kaf, who is Kaf, and where's Yeshua in the letter Kaf, writing out the letter Kaf, doing the script so you get it. And you know this letter, you know these 8 verses. I mean, literally, you could take this as deep as you want. It is one of the Sophite letters. Which is an ultimate letter. I'll let you guys, we'll talk. Brenda teaches that very well. I'm not going to reteach something she does. And it's representing the palm. This is an open palm that requires trust, bitachon. We talked last week about yod, which is that active hand, holding on to something, showing his power, his ownership, him saying, mine. But kaf, on the other hand, is the open hand, meaning to give, the giver and the receiver of things. Ancient Kaf was drawn as a wing. In Psalms 91:4, he will cover you with his wings. That's trust. The word kippur starts with the letter Kaf. It's a covering. It means atonement. Leviticus 16:30. Kanaf starts with the letter Kaf. Extremity of a garment, the wings, the covering. Psalms 57:1. Kala, it's about the covering of the bride. We see that in Isaiah 49:18. And kahad, to conceal something, to cover something in Job 27:11. Kanaf, that healing, that covering in Numbers 15:37 through 41. I recommend you go in and look about that, about atonement and looking about how the working of the covering and wearing the tzitzit. Actually, this is about wearing tzitzits. And it's actually, the kanaf is actually the border where the tzitzit are actually connected and placed to. And I put this picture over here. This is actually a picture of a Hebrew captive. This is interesting. It's a hieroglyphic in Egypt, but it's a Hebrew, and actually you can't tell in this, he actually has blue eyes in this. Interesting. It's his eyes are blue in this picture. But if you look at the hems of his garment. So I wonder, Anyway, Ruth 2:12 and 3:9 talk about covering in his wings. We're very familiar with the story of Boaz and the way that she got under his covering and she picked up his kanaf and covered herself. We see in Malachi 4. We're going to talk about that. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Since we got started a little bit late, I'm going to finish these out. Malachi 4, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. In Ruth 2:12, Yahweh recompense thy work, and full reward be given to thee, Yahweh God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Ruth 3:9, and he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thy handmaid. Spread therefore thy kanaf over your handmaid. Then we see in Matthew 9:19 through 22, which we love this story. Most of us grab onto this. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came before him, Yeshua, and touched his kana, his hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I'll be whole. But Yeshua turned him around, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Your faith has made you whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. The word hem is from that Greek word crospadon, which means the fringes or the tassels, and that's Strong's 2899. So it's all that one part of the garment. There's a talk in Matthew 24:27 through 29 is more about the flood. I didn't put that in there, but it's talking about Noah and the flood and the pitch and atonement and the covering. 2 Peter 3:7, and by the same word, the present heavens and earth have been stored up for fire. They are being kept for the days of judgment when ungodly people will be destroyed, saying that he's holding it back. He's covering things up. So again, the pitch applied to the ark is what made it watertight and able to weather the judgment of Yahweh. Do you see that? The pitch, the atonement, that made it watertight, like the lamb, like he's saying, I'm a wineskin dried in the smoke. Your covering is the atonement is causing me now to operate in the function that ark could not operate if it wasn't covered in atonement, if it wasn't covered the way it needed to be covered. All right, so let's do our prayer as we go through these words. Remember, you guys have this, you can print it out. I want to pray this before we stop our recording. I think last week we did it after, so I want to make sure we do it this time. May we cry out with all our hearts. Wrong one. That's Kaf. May our souls no longer faint with longing for your salvation, but may we still hope in your word. May our eyes no longer be worn out, longing for your promise, saying, when will you comfort me? May we not become like wineskin dried in smoke, but may we not forget your decrees. And I want to add to that, may we actually be thankful while you're drying us like the wineskins in the smoke. May we understand the process. May we know, Father, that you're doing this for our good. May we know, Father, that the reason that this is happening is because you love us so much that you want us to be watertight. You want us to operate in the function so that we can save others. A wineskin will give water to others. The ark saved others. May the proud no longer dig us pits for us. May we know that this is not in accordance with your Torah. May we know that the number of your days, your servant, and that you execute judgment on our persecutors. May we know that all your commandments are faithful. May they no longer persecute us with lies. May we receive help. May we no longer be almost finished off on earth. May we not forget your precepts. May we be revived with loving kindness so that we may keep the testimony of your mouth. Amen.